You may have heard that Elon Musk is foreclosing on Gene Wilder's former home. This is an interesting tale we're going to dive into to talk about whether equity matters when you're being foreclosed on.
And here it is. This is the home that Gene Wilder used to own. It has a notice of default filed against it. It's on the market for $12,950,000. Diving into the realist report, this is a cool tool we get as real estate agents, use this with my clients all the time, use this to analyze properties. We can see right here in February of 1976, Gene Wilder purchased this home for $314,000. Shows you the power of real estate if you own it long enough in Southern California. He then transferred into his living trust in 2006. It was sold in 2007 to Bristol Capital LLC for $2.725 million. Now, not a huge level of gain between 76 and 2007, but things have changed. Things have gone up. So then in 2013, Elon Musk purchased the home for 6.75. So a big jump in those 6 years in value. Elon transferred it into this LLC, Callisto 100, and then ultimately that LLC ended up selling the property to Deer Fishy LLC, which is the nephew of Gene Wilder, for $7 million. And not only was it sold for $7 million, which seems to be a deal considering values did go up between 2013 and 2020, but also in addition to that discount, Elon Musk also carried back financing. So we can see that right here, $6.7 million, private individual, private party lender. That means that the financing was carried back by a private party. Turns out it was Elon Musk in this case. So the home was sold at a discount and this preferential treatment was given for the financing. Then we see that in July of 2024, that a notice of default was filed against the property in the amount of $3.9 million. This is the first step in the foreclosure process. And here it is. Here's the notice of default for the property. It's on this document that has been filed against the property, shows that as of 7/29/2024, the amount of approximately $3.9 million is owed. It also says that no sale date will may be set until approximately 90 days from the date that this notice of default was recorded. The date of recordation appears on this notice, and it was recorded 7/31/24 at 8 a.m. And then 90 days later, we'll have that notice of trustee sale filed. Potentially could take longer, and on there will be the date, which should be a minimum of 21 days from there.
So now that the notice of default is filed and the property is actively listed on the MLS for almost $13 million, what happens next? Well, it will potentially continue through the foreclosure process. 90 days later, we can have the notice of trustee sale. That's minimum, could take longer. And then 21 days after that could be the actual sale itself. But the property is currently listed for almost $13 million, and they owe around 7 and change on the property.
And right here on the notice of default, it talks about the original sum of 6.7 for the loan. It talks about an amount that was due on October 28, 2021. And what it looked like is there was a balloon payment built into this loan. We don't have the note to be able to see exactly what the terms of the payment were, but that's why we're seeing such a large amount, 3.9 million. So it's the principal balance of 3.2 plus penalties. And then there's another 3.5 that'll be tacked on. So this number will get bigger. It will exceed the original 6.7 because it's also going to include penalties and attorney fees and different charges like that that start to add up.
What happens when you have equity, like we see here in the Gene Wilder home, the equity gives the homeowner an additional route to go. They don't have to go all the way through the foreclosure process because they can sell the home and potentially walk away with good cash. They only paid $7 million for this home. They owe now, because they're in default, they owe more than that. So they're upside down when you compare to the originally what they paid, but they have significant equity. Now, if they stick to their guns and nobody shows up to buy it for $13 million and they don't reduce the price, it could go through the full foreclosure process and end up being foreclosed on. Just because it's for sale doesn't necessarily mean the foreclosure process will be stopped. Now, what happens if it is foreclosed on and it ends up selling for something like $10 million? The current owner who's behind on payments will get that additional money. They'll get the equity that's left over after the foreclosure sale process, and the home is sold through that process. but it is an expensive, lousy way to sell a property, and they will end up with the least amount of equity if they go through this route.
So what are you going to do to continue to track this property and see what happens in this riveting tale? We still have the notice of trustee sale to be filed with potentially a sale. You're going to sign up for a foreclosure.com account, which you have a link below so you can do that, and you can track this property in the pre-foreclosure process, plus every other property in California and beyond if you'd like. And you're going to subscribe to this channel because we're going to continue to bring this story as it develops.
Thanks for tuning in. This has been Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates, and we can't wait to hear from you.